Well, that's part of the messy mix of plant experimentation and fusion. Let's head down to another location to continue seeing what's going on with the plants these days. Down here near the sauna, we've got a variety of plants, just some kind of ornamentals, so that when you're drying off in the sun after a sauna, you have something pretty to look at. Plants are all pretty small right now, but they'll get bigger over time. The sauna right now is filled up with mangoes. They're drying. So we start the fire early in the morning, and then we have trays full of cut up mangoes that we want to get really dry so that we can have mangoes all year round. There's a mango season here, and during that season the mangoes are extremely cheap. You can buy boxes of them and boxes of them. And if we preserve those, then during times of the year where the mangoes are more expensive, we can still be eating mangoes. Some of the plants down here at the sauna are red hot pokers that we raised from seed. The previous owner had put in a huge number of red hot pokers, and we collected those seeds and raised them from seed. If you're patient, you can just get those from division as well. You can wait till the plant's old enough and then divide it and you get another plant. From seed we get a lot more of them if we're willing to baby them for a couple of years. I think it was like 3 years we babied those. And then the advantage of that is you're diversifying the genome. The plants are not identical because you didn't do it by division, you did it by seed, and so we could get a different kind of flower. We could get just a healthier mix of genes that might be some resistance to some disease or insect or we don't know what. But it's good to diversify the genome, so in this case we've had success with that. Yeah. Here we are looking at the earth roof over the sauna, and we're kind of looking at what plants have done well and how we would change things. This one over here is kind of some type of succulent I'm not familiar with, but it's done very well. And so we'll put that in different places. There's a draping succulent that goes over the side. We like that one. 2 other kinds of succulents up there have done well. And so we might as well go with a lot of succulents. However, we also think that the borage seeds are growing, so we're going to leave things mostly the way they are and see what comes up this year. Now that we know what we are sure can work all year round, I want to see what can reproduce itself also on the roof. And borage would be wonderful. Also up on that roof we find that there's seedlings of what is it? Sinflasuchil, which is, I believe, a marigold in English. It's one of the Day of the Dead flowers that they use, except that this particular variety is a shorter one. I don't know where we got it. Flores de Muertos, sí. Perfecto. One of our successes here is rosemary. This is a 2-year-old rosemary. It's doing quite well with no water fertilizer, and this is the driest part of the year. It's a very healthy plant. What's interesting is that this was created by simply cutting a piece off of a different rosemary and moving it here and putting it directly in the ground at the right time of year, just as the rains are beginning, so it doesn't dry out. If you can do that, if you can reproduce a plant like that and it can survive, that means you've got the plant solved completely. You can have as much rosemary as you'd like. The other plants, often we need to baby them more. We need to cut pieces and keep them humid and protect them for a year or two in order to get the result we want. But because we've tried it in the most crude way possible, we now know that we can make as much rosemary as we want, anywhere we want. We can have rosemary hedges. We can eat lots of rosemary. And some people even think rosemary has medicinal values. It certainly does taste good. One interesting garden is a garden that's on the trail to Shambhala. We have a few there in which we put seeds of madrone trees. Madrone trees are notoriously difficult to reproduce. They're semi-endangered. Not here. We have plenty. But that's a good reason to reproduce them and maybe teach other people to help reestablish this amazingly pretty tree. The madrones are curvy and they just look sexy. They're a really nice tree. So out of one of those gardens, after some initial failures, we now have some successes at having beds of baby madrones just sitting there. And we'll be able to give those little trees to anybody who wants them. Also in the same gardens we have a bunch of magueys that we planted. Those are coming up okay. There was one other tree out there we put. I forget what it was now. Anyway, that whole garden, for 2 years we thought that it didn't work. But it's just very slow. So if we're patient, we can do very little work and reproduce these amazing plants. The studio is a very interesting place for plant reproduction. We've used it in a variety of ways. It's very hot in here, a lot of sun. It's also protected from the rain. We tried tomatoes in here, the aphids got them. that year, and I didn't kill any of the aphids. I just thought something else might come to kill the aphids. But we're still working on that problem. White flies were a problem. Anyway, in here we've got some odd plants. Like these look like little peas. Here's a white triangular weird cactus thing. We've reproduced that fairly well. Here's a green one of the same stuff. This guy's done well. Hyawartha's done well. This little odd cactus, don't know what the hell that is. Odd cactus, we got one of those. Here's a passiflora. This reproduces really well. No problem at all. Get all that we want. So basically the plants we most think are happy in here are cactuses. It's possible we try again with tomatoes. And there could be other things that do well here. We're not sure. But most things we want to get outside. We don't want to have roofs for everything we reproduce. So you can make 6 liters of chutney, and it maps out to about for about 20 pesos of mangoes in the high season, and that's like for a jar maybe 5 pesos. So very cheap. Under what? We have to do a calculation. What I just said was probably a lie. I don't really know the right measurements or what it was. I wasn't in the kitchen at the time. Over by the lodge there's a succulents garden. It's normally quite nice. We've let it overgrow so that we can take a lot of the plants later and do more cuttings. There's roses here that are in bloom right now, and they bloom at various times of the year without any water or fertilizer. So we'd rather have our roses grow in a situation like this where we don't have to do any work or use any outside energy, but the roses still do just fine. I personally think it's a little silly when people care for their roses. They over-care for their roses to the point where it's an obsession. It's probably not, well, people can do what they want, but I'm not going to do it that way. There's some nice daturas in here. We've done lots of cuttings off those. An old rosemary. Some succulents. This big nice plant here is from the other side of Morelia. It was brought here by the previous owner, so it's kind of a near native. Also in here you get lots of capulines because there's a big capuline tree up above here. The capuline is a native cherry. They're very small cherries. You can just pop them in your mouth and swish them around, eat them up, and spit the seeds out. Very tasty. Potential there for making jams and maybe even fermenting them. Since they're now spreading all over the forest, we also like to try grafting them with other kinds of cherries so that we could get a variety of cherries. Almost all the capulines in the forest are quite small because the baby capulines are favored by cows, and there used to be cows here. But now we're getting a whole generation of ones that are about 2 feet tall. So in a few years we'll be able to start grafting those or just get lots of capulines. Another interesting thing about the capuline is it's the favorite fruit of the trogon birds. There's mountain trogons and elegant trogons here. They're quite rare and they're endemic to this area. So bird watchers like to come here just to see them. And during the height of the capuline season, we can guarantee that the trogons will be here every day eating. Capulines are their favorite food. Along the side of the house here, there's a little bit of English ivy. That's also from the previous owner. Surprisingly, it's not invasive here because it's so dry, and it actually could make a nice wall covering. We don't have a lot of it, but we're going to reproduce a little bit and see how that goes. Jacarandas are one of the more beautiful trees around here. They turn a beautiful shade of purple during part of the year, and they're quite easy to reproduce, so we have lots of baby jacarandas. It might be quite a few years before we have them all in the forest, though. One nice surprise this time of year is the bougainvillea. It turns a beautiful purple like this. There's other kinds of bougainvilleas as well. We've got some pink ones over there. I wish we had hundreds of them all around, but they do take a while to get established, especially if they don't have any water. Well, that pretty much concludes a little plant walking around for today. See what's going on with the plants. There's a lot more going on besides that, but it's a hot day out there, so I don't feel like checking out anymore. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed seeing some of the plants that are out there this time of the year, this extremely dry, difficult time of the year.